Chapter 3. The planet Earth, so blue in satellite photographs, is more than 70% water. The oceans seem boundless, like outer space, said Charles Moore. But he and others have been painful proof that the oceans cannot make all trash disappear. A dead albatross was found in 2005, had a piece of plastic inside its stomach from World War II seaplanes that crashed into the Pacific Ocean in 1944. The plastic 61-year journey likely began with spinning around in the North Pacific second trash vortex near Japan. Then it likely drifted on the gyro currents for 6,000 miles east and spun in the trash vortex Moore discovered before the albatross mistook it for food. When Moore finds jellyfish embedded with colorful plastic confused for meals, he said he thinks about the truth that we don't know what it means to weave an artificial plastic material into the tissue of life. The path of plastic into living bodies is long and well traveled. Most plastics do not begin their water journey dramatically. They just slip in quietly. Brand overflows, dumps, or storm drains, carrying trash into rivers. People, both ashore and at sea, throw trash into the water. About 90% of trash entering oceans today is plastic. 5 subtropical gyres in the Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian Ocean suck in and circulate it slowly around the world. It takes a decade for a water bottle from California to float to Japan and back. Plastic survives these journeys easily since it takes 500 years or more to break down. Visitors to gyres and volunteers cleaning up coastlines find the same type of pollution wherever they go, and much of it is everyday plastic objects, used only once. Half of the 600 billion pounds of plastic manufactured each year becomes these discarded items. People around the world use 1 trillion grocery bags each year, but for just 12 minutes on average in the United States alone, people slurp up using 500 million plastic straws a day. They throw away 2.5 million plastic bottles every hour. Floating plastic can become traps. Fishers once used nets woven from hemp, cotton, and other natural fibers. Floats made of wood or hollow glass keeps nets hanging vertically in the water. Now they can choose plastic foam floats and nylon nets that do not rot, break, or tear easily. The problem is that a lost nylon fishing net or tangled mass of hooks and lines does not stop fishing, said Marcus Erickson, who studied the distribution and impact of plastic marine pollution. Those ghost nets drift and trap such animals as dolphins and sea turtles, killing about 1,000 a day. An 11.5-ton tangle of nets drifting once near Hawaii looked like a little island of floats from the surface, said the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration scientist Mark Manuel. But, he said, it was really a dark wall of destruction. Plastic can invade marine animals to them at a closer look. While single-use plastic is quickly emptied and discarded, it still looks useful. Hermit crabs move into plastic bottle tops instead of shells. 13 dead sperm whales washed up on Germany's coast one day in 2016. Researchers discovered the dead whales had eaten unnatural meals of plastic, from fishing lines to car parts. Although the litter did not directly cause the whales to become stranded, it is a concern. Floating plastic bags can look like graceful squid, a popular meal for sperm whales. This tragic mistake causes them to starve with full stomachs, said conservationist Nicola Hodgins. Sea turtles mistake plastic bags for a meal of jellyfish. Gases fill their plastic packed stomachs, making them too buoyant to dive for food or escape predators. A research study indicated that half of the world's sea turtles could contain plastic. Australian scientists estimate that 90% of the seabirds that scavenger the ocean's surface have eaten plastic. Researcher Denise Hardesty examined dead seabirds and said, I have seen everything from cigarette lighters to bottle caps to model cars. I found toys. But floating plastic makes life easier for some marine animals. Brackies, coconuts, and leaves provide rafts for animals that cannot move on their own. Trash provides synthetic rafts that last decades and can cross oceans. A floating buoy or refrigerator door a refrigerator door turns into a floating ecosystem when brachioles attach it. Like trees in a rainforest, they offer shelter and transportation to coastal creatures such as crabs, said biologist Mike Gill. But globe traveling organisms are not always welcome. Zebra mussels from the Black Sea hitched a ride on a cargo ship to the Great Lakes in 1988. They multiply and spread uncontrollably across North America, stealing resources from native species and attaching themselves to a water pipe and ship rudders. Hitchhiking marine life can upset natural balances in more devastating ways. Under the rotating gyres, water, another cycle takes place. Small herbivores called zooplankton eat microscopic one-celled marine plants called phytoplankton. Small fish, like sardines, eat zooplankton. Larger and faster fish, like tuna, eat smaller fish. There's a lot of things there that are hungry all the time, said marine ecologist Marion Goldstein, who had studied one of those hungry creatures, halibats. The long-legged marine insect shakes across the ocean surface. Normally, they stay close to the shore and lay eggs in floating pieces of wood or buoyant volcanic rock. But plentiful microscopic invite them to travel and multiply far beyond their coastal habits. They feast on zooplankton, which means that sardines may go hungry and that many other larger animals may go hungry too. Plastic does more than introduce new predators to the gyres. It also becomes a link in the gyro's food chain. Moore once found 2.5-inch fish with 84 plastic pieces inside its belly. Scientists estimate that around 20% of fish have eaten plastic. Microplastics, which measure zero 0.2 inches or less, look like inviting zooplankton to hungry fish. This mistake happens again and again because there are more than 5 trillion microplastic pieces drifting at the ocean's surface. Microplastics are not just found at sea. Snow seemed to coat a Hong Kong beach in 2012. But it was summertime. Millions of pellets of raw plastic had washed up after containers had fallen from a ship. Sunlight weakened plastic trash, so it broke it into fragments through photodegradation, but these pea-sized pellets were human-made. Refineries produce these round microplastics, nicknamed nurdles, to sell around the world to manufacturers, which melt them into create plastic products. But nurdles easily escape during transportation to bob in the gyro or land on beaches, earning them the gloomy nickname mermaid tears. Volunteers in the United Kingdom combed hundreds of beaches and found nurdles on 3/4 of them. Bathroom sinks offer an unexpected path to the gyres. In mid 2017, when the US ban took effect, plastic beads, smaller than a grain of salt, were put into toothpaste and facial washes to scrub teeth and skin clean. Every day, 8 trillion of the microbeads slip through the drains into the US sewage system, according to researchers at Oregon State University. In underground pipes, the beads joined microplastic escaping homes through wastewater flowing from washing machines. Clothing made of plastic fibers, such as nylons, lose fibers less than 0.04 inches long when they are washed. One piece of clothing can release almost 2,000 microfibers. These particles are small enough to slip past filters and race towards streams, rivers, and oceans. They have turned up in table salt in China and Arctic waters. I have no doubt that every time I eat oysters and mussels, I eat at least one microfiber, said ecology and biology professor Chelsea Rauchman. I see dust in the air and we inhale that. The question is, at what point does it become a problem? Microplastic swirls through seawaters behave like air pollution. Miniature particles from such sources as burning fossil fuels and power plants form a yellow haze over some of the world's cities. They settle in lungs, causing 7 million deaths a year worldwide. Marine life faces a similar threat. The idea that there are patches of trash in the ocean is a myth, said Erickson, adding that plastic pollution is more a plastic smog, like massive clouds of microplastic that emanated out of the 5 subtropical gyres. Scientists gauging the amount of plastic in gyres have an unusual concern. They are finding too little. About 8 million tons of plastic enters oceans each year, yet samples from shallow regions of the ocean suggest that as little as 40,000 tons of plastic float in the ocean. 99% of our plastic is missing, said oceanographer Eric von Stebel. We know how much goes in. We know how much is on the surface. Where's the rest? The sun, waves, salt, and gyres have done their work well. Most of the plastic becomes microplastic. These microplastics have probably already washed up on beaches, sunk to the seafloor, or been eaten. Scientists in Plymouth, England, worked with a nature film director in 2015 to make a startling video. Viewers saw not a seabird eating a bottle top, but zooplankton eating plastic microbeads. 2 years later, a video camera equipped with a microscope recorded the arrow worm, a tiny zooplankton ingesting plastic microfibers, which cause a blockage. Once ingested by the tiny transparent animal, the plastic behaves much as a plastic bag does inside a sea turtle. When I saw it, I thought that here was something visually to convey to the public the problem of plastic in the sea, say Richard Kirby, a marine scientist who recorded the 2017 footage. What intrigues me is that because the fiber has made a loop inside the animal's gut, you can actually see the consequences of something as small as the arrow worm consuming microplastic. Each time a predator eats prey, plastic travels from one body to the next and forms an expanding collection. Sunlight, salt, and waves cannot dissolve plastic, and neither can stomach acids. That's why the ocean's last and fastest predator, such as the 100-pound tuna Moore hooked on his 1997 journey through the gyre, can have plastic lodged in muscles and fat that earlier were plankton meals. But plastic relentlessly journey does not end at the top of the marine food chain. There's another top predator in the ocean, it turns out, said marine ecologist Stephen Plumby. The top predator, of course, is us. Studies show that microplastic laced 1/4 of the fish sold at seafood markets on both sides of the North Pacific gyres in Indonesia and California. What goes into the ocean, says Urickson, goes into those animals and onto your dinner plate. It's that simple. Seafood, whether eaten raw or cooked, delivers more important nutrients to people's body. More than 2.5 billion people on Earth depend on sea life for protein. Proteins make up blood, bones, muscles, and brain cells and control the functioning of cells everywhere in the body. But when seasoned with microplastic, seafood can upset a body's delicate balance. The ocean is basically a toilet bowl for all of our chemical pollutants and waste in general, said Roachman. Dangerous chemicals hide inside meals of microplastic, leaked into oceans through rivers, rainwater, groundwater, and dumping chemicals attached to tiny plastic reefs for a ride through the world's currents and food chains. Some of these passengers, molecules of PCBs, were designed to resist high temperatures. Once part of common devices, such as industrial equipment, televisions, and refrigerators, they were banned in 1979 because of fear they caused cancer. Another hitchhiker on microplastic was banned in 1972 for the same reason. DDT, an insecticide, was designed to kill disease-carrying mosquitoes and insects that destroyed crops. Like plastics, these chemicals do not dissolve away. The pollutants have been detected in human blood, and PCBs have been found in the shrimp-like animal living in the Mariana Trench, 36,000 feet below the surface of the Pacific Ocean. Even without hitchhiking chemicals, microplastics make toxic meals. To add toughness and flexibility, chemicals such as bisaviol A, PBA, and bathitis are added to plastic holding food and drink, such as baby bottles, soda bottles, juice box straws, and food can liners. These are artificial chemicals. When eaten or drunk, confuse some of the body's natural chemicals called hormones. Hormones carry vital messages ranging from instructions telling the body how to grow and develop to messages that trigger emotions and feelings of hunger. Testing shows that BPA levels in US children are twice as high as those of older Americans who grew up with less plastic in their lives. Plastic that travels back to land as seafood completes an unfortunate cycle. It's very convenient to roll your trash to the curb every week and have it disappear, but it's a magic trick and really not very magic at all, said Edward Hums, who has written a book about the history of garbage. We need to have less packaging, use less disposable items, use, use things that last longer, make purchasing decisions that are studied and less wasteful. In the United States, about half of the nation's trash is buried in landfills, where sturdy liner keeps it from having contact with air and nearby soil. Liners also keep trash away from water flowing underground that eventually reaches the ocean. The other half of the US trash is recycled or burned to ashes. But for a third of the people living in the rest of the world, there is no waste management system. Plastic trash travels wherever wind and water takes it. Not far from the western edge of the North Pacific gyres, cockroaches, rats, and goats swarm over a mountain of trash near Jerica, Indonesia. Every day, trucks dump 6,890 tons more. Thousands of people, including children, live there. They dig through the trash searching for glass, aluminum, and plastic to sell. They might earn 50 cents a day. No liner contains this growing heap or others in a crowded city along the jetties. Cheap, single use plastic products flow into the Philippines, Vietnam, and Sri Lanka as large businesses based in developing countries collect profits. It's really about fairness, said environmental activist Matt Predibio. If you make something, you need to take responsibility for the environmental and social impact of that product. When consumer goods companies sell all of their products wrapped in packaging to developing countries that do not have any solid waste or recycling infrastructure, we have rivers of plastic that are literally flowing into the ocean. Scientists estimate that more than 110 million tons of plastic trash is already in the ocean. By 2050, the plastic in the ocean could weigh more than the fish that live there. At the end of the day, we have to remember that the ocean is always downstream, said conservationist biologist Nicole Malice. It may not reach the ocean today or tomorrow, but we know water flows downstream. We need to think about the items we are using, not just on beaches, but also inland and communities far upstream as well.